While ninjas have been a staple of Japanese jitageki, which are period dramas, the most famous of these are The Seven Samurai and Rashomon. The ninja boom that happened in the 1980s erupted from two English-language films, The Octagon, starring Chuck Norris, and Enter the Ninja with Franco Nero. Also starring in Enter the Ninja was an unknown martial artist from Japan, Sho Kosugi, who landed the role of the villain, which jump-started his career. Having trained since he was a small child, Sho Kosugi was a master of multiple martial arts, including ninjutsu, and was a karate champion in both Japan and America. Kosugi would star in multiple ninja films and television series, and become the face of the ninja craze of the 1980s. Join us as we enter the Kosugi and discuss Revenge of the Ninja, Ninja 3 The Domination, Pray for Death, and 9 Deaths of the Ninja on this month's episode of My Dad's Video Store. Joining me, as always, are my partners in cinematic crime, Waylon Bacon and Gray Creasy. How are we doing today, fellas?
Well, I'll tell you what, I'm ready to don a black mask and some black eyeliner, grab some throwing stars, and take on a gangster drug smuggling ring.
Nice. So you're ready to pray for death, then, for sure. So, yes, nice. Excellent. And Revenge of the Ninja, strangely enough.
And 9 Deaths of the Ninja, too, really.
Yeah.
They all involve, drug smuggling rings, except for Ninja 3. So, martial arts and action films were, a huge part of my childhood. And Kosugi was almost as important to me as Bruce Lee or Chuck Norris. Did either of you have some favorite martial arts films growing up?
You will laugh when I tell you it was probably just the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and which I don't know if that even counts.
No, totally. 100%.
Right? And Three Ninjas, which I don't know if you guys remember this one.
The kids' ninja film, yeah, from the 90s.
And I don't actually recall what that film was about, but I know I rented it a lot. So I just have kind of a vague impression of enjoying that movie, but yeah.
What about you, Gray?
I was kind of the same way. It was mostly very westernized martial arts movies, apart from Enter the Dragon, which was huge for me as a kid, but Big Trouble in Little China.
Oh, yeah.
I was a big fan of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I was taking karate at the time, and I think our whole dojo went out to the theater to see it on opening day, which was quite silly and very, very American thing to do.
I saw Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles opening weekend, I believe, as well in the theater. It was just a big phenomenon. I remember the original comics for that, which were all black and white, and they were actually more adult-oriented. I remember they had it was the first comics I'd ever gotten that had curse words in it.
Oh yeah, and they were incredibly violent.
I have the collection in the bathroom, actually. It's one of my all-time favorite toilet reads. It's the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles comic.
Nice.
Nice. Yeah. The early Eastman stuff. And then I don't know at what point they changed it to being kind of kid-friendly, but then it became the biggest thing ever. Yeah, the 80s were interesting. Ninjas were just huge during the 80s. And, Sho Kosugi was certainly kind of at the center of all of that. I also was a huge fan of Enter the Dragon. But I was also an enormous fan of Revenge of the Ninja. Actually, all the films that we're going to discuss today I watched several times, but I think Revenge of the Ninja I probably watched the most. That was the movie that made me go, all right, I need to save up my allowance and buy a ninja outfit. And my friends and I, we all bought ninja stuff. We made our own stuff. My dad made me nunchucks out of a broken broom handle. And, all of us were into it. I even had shurikens, and we would throw them at a wooden target. My dad was all into it because he was into martial arts. He was a brown belt in karate. And, he could break bricks and all this stuff. So he was super into it. And he loved Bruce Lee. So me having a fascination in martial arts, he was just super supportive of. So he's like, yeah, shurikens, you want to throw them at this target? Great. Here's some nunchucks, kid. What could go wrong? Huge part of my life. But yeah, let's dive into the wonderful world of Sho Kosugi. Probably be a good idea to define what a ninja is exactly. So ninja means one who is invisible. They are also known as shinobi, which means one who sneaks. The ninjas were masters of assassination, reconnaissance, infiltration. Later, they were used as bodyguards. They were kind of like the CIA of feudal Japan. And in a lot of ways, they were the opposite to the samurai, who fought by a very strict code of honor, whereas the ninjas were all about deception. The name of their martial arts is called ninjutsu, which they were all masters of. They kind of have a lot of folklore around them, such as they could become invisible, they had control over natural elements, such as fire and water. They have this sort of mystical branding about them. And I think pretty much all the films that we're about to discuss today, it kind of exploits that sort of mystical aspect of the ninja. So that's the cliff notes of like what a ninja is before we dive in and discuss. But we're not just here to talk about ninjas. We're here to discuss the great Sho Kosugi. So a little backstory on Sho Kosugi's career. In the early 80s, Israeli producers Menachem Golan and Yoram Globus acquired the American studio Cannon Films. And they began producing low-budget films. And one of the early films they produced that became an international hit was the film Enter the Ninja. Karate champion Mike Stone was originally set to star in Enter the Ninja, but it turned out he couldn't really act. They were filming in the Philippines, and Menachem, who was also directing Enter the Ninja, found out Franco Nero was at the Manila Film Festival and reached out to him to take over as the lead actor in the film. This, of course, spawned an ongoing trend, along with Chuck Norris in the film The Octagon, of a white guy with a mustache as a ninja master. There's just hundreds of these films, and they all feature white guys with mustaches. This is where all of that starts. Kosugi was brought on as a ninja extra and fight choreographer, originally by Stone, but Menachem liked him so much that they decided to make him the villain in the film. Before this, Kosugi, he'd been primarily a background extra in films like Bad News Bears, Godfather 2. Now he landed a major role in a film, and this would go on to be a kind of a huge hit at the box office, and it made Kosugi a star. Cannon wanted to immediately capitalize on the success of Enter the Ninja, so they put another ninja film into production quickly, but because everyone was talking about how impressed they were with Kosugi, he would now play the lead and the hero in the film we are about to discuss, Revenge of the Ninja from 1983.
The Ninja. Born of a 400-year-old tradition. Trained in the most exquisite subtleties of combat. The ninja must be as wise as he is all-powerful. For if ever a ninja gives himself over to the dark side of his art, the destruction is terrifying and absolute. Revenge of the Ninja, starring martial arts master Sho Kosugi and his son Kane Kosugi, 6-year-old world karate champion. When he came to America, he put aside his weapons.
I will not follow the way of the ninja.
But he could not put aside his destiny as a warrior. And now, destiny has come searching for him. Two warriors. One in the service of evil. One bound by honor and vengeance, must fight to the death. Because only a ninja can kill a ninja. Revenge of the Ninja, the great martial arts explosion of the 80s, comes to America with full force.
All right, Waylon, can you synopsize Revenge of the Ninja for our audience?
I will do my best here. There's a lot of plot, so bear with me. It's got a lot of setup here. So I'm sure I'm going to mangle all the names, but Sho Kosugi, who is played by Sho Kosugi, he swears off his ninja ways when a rival clan murders his family. He only is able to save his mother and his youngest son, Kane, who's actually played by his real-life son, also named Kane. Basically, his business partner and buddy, Braden, is like, you should come with me to America. I think it'll be better for you there. We can set up a business of some sort. And he's like, sure. So they go to America and they set up this art gallery selling Japanese dolls. Unfortunately, unbeknownst to Cho, Braden is actually smuggling heroin inside of these dolls, which is a plot that's almost uncovered when Cho's son Kane accidentally knocks over one of the dolls and finds the heroin inside. As it turns out, in addition to all this, Braden has actually been trying to strike a deal with this local mob boss, who's played by Mario Gallo, who you may recognize from Raging Bull. And the deal goes south, and Braden decides to get his revenge, and he dons this silver mask and begins killing all of Kefrano's men. Because as it turns out, Braden is also a ninja. Where does Cho fit into all this? Well, eventually, Kefano's mob retaliates and invades the art gallery, and Cho is forced to forgo his retirement and defend his family, eventually stumbling onto Braden's betrayal. This sounds like a lot, but actually it plays much better than my description makes it sound, and it's full of a lot of great moments that could have only happened in the 1980s. It definitely is the kind of thing that my dad and I used to rent together every Friday night. It was a lot of fun.
Nice. Awesome. Gray, I know you said on the last show you had not seen any of the films that we're discussing this month. What did you think of Revenge of the Ninja?
That's true, and I actually did watch this one first, and I can't think of a better one to have watched first, because it sort of encapsulates everything. Did I know that it would be a movie about a ninja sort of coming out of retirement for vengeance? Of course, it's in the title, and it delivers on that. Did I know there would be gangsters and drug deals involved? Yes, of course, they all do. Did I know that for a brief period of time in the movie it would become a full-on slasher film? No!
Yeah.
I was delighted by that. This movie has so much going for it. And from the very beginning, like the opening scene where they take out Cho's family, at first I was like, damn, that took a lot of ninjas to just kill one unarmed family. But then you see Sho Kosugi, like, grabbing arrows out of the sky, or out of the air with his teeth, and you're like, oh shit, no, they didn't bring enough ninjas. Yeah. It just goes on from there. And it also made me realize I miss lightly edited, long fight scenes that have very minimal editing, and there's tons of choreography in big, long takes.
This film is so lean. I don't think there's an ounce of fat on this movie. It is just one action scene after the other with a tiny little bit of plot in between.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's and that opening scene you were just talking about is brutal.
Yeah.
His whole family is just slaughtered. Kids get shurikens in the eye. Yeah. And I guess that was a scene added after the fact. Like, Menachem saw it and was like, this movie needs something. It needs something at the beginning to really grab the audience. And he, as Menachem Golan was known to do, he would just literally shout out what the scene was, and then they just have to go film it. So that was...
That's perfect.
Well, his instincts were 100% correct. That opening, I can't imagine that movie without that opening.
No, yeah.
Same. No, it's fascinating that was an add-on after the fact. So, yeah, I'm curious. I guess it maybe just started with them in L.A. I'm not sure. Yeah. But yeah, it is hard to imagine the film without it.
Or Salt Lake City.
It looks like L.A.
It does. I was like, oh, what part of L.A.? Where's this park they're fighting in L.A.? And I looked it up. I was like, oh, this isn't L.A. at all. This is Salt Lake City. Which I guess, they got an amazing deal. They didn't have to pay for any permits or anything. And because they knew they had all this helicopter stuff they had to do. They had to shoot on a rooftop for 2 weeks for the final ninja duel. And yeah, I guess Salt Lake City was just eager to get Cannon's business, and they just sort of rolled out the red carpet.
They sure did.
I was just going to say, yeah, we actually drove through Salt Lake City a couple of years ago, and Utah is, desolate and small towns and, creepy. And then you get to Salt Lake City and it actually felt like Los Angeles. People were driving in that same take no prisoners kind of way. And then we actually ended up at an In-N-Out burger in Salt Lake City. So it is kind of LA's weird second cousin.
With just lower alcohol beer. Waylon, what did you think of Revenge of the Ninja?
Oh, I loved it. It was, like Gray, it was the first one I watched. So it's my introduction to Sho Kosugi and the the whole canon ninja trilogy, and it was perfect. It was perfectly wacky. It was actually it went beyond my expectations when it started. I said, I think I know what this movie's going to be, and then you've got scenes where Kane is beating up the bullies, which I thought was amazing, and then you actually had the scene with the grandma actually attacking Braden, which I thought was also most excellent.
Ninja Grandma.
Oh, yeah.
It has a ninja grandma in it.
And she's so cool about it, too. And her, spoiler alert, but when Braden gets the drop on her, too, it is one of the better death scenes in this entire group of films that Brad made us watch this week.
It is.
Brutal.
Yeah, and then I feel like, there's that scene in the beginning where Grandma is insisting that Cho teaches Kane the way of the ninja. And I'm like, did you see what Kane just did to those kids? I think he already knows the way of the ninja. And then you see Grandma whooping ass later, and it's like, wait a minute, why didn't she just teach him?
Right.
Yeah. One of the great things about watching these films is actually seeing Kane become more confident, because he gets a couple of fight scenes in every film, and in every one, he's better and better. And by the time we get to 9 Deaths of the Ninja, I was like, yeah, this kid is fucking dangerous.
His nunchuck skills, they're always on display. That's like his sort of like token move. And he's like 5. He's like 5 when he made Revenge of the Ninja.
That's crazy.
It is. It's wild. It's absolutely wild. But I guess Sho Kosugi also was heavily involved in martial arts from a young age. So he just did the same thing as part of his upbringing. He's like, well, you're going to follow in Daddy's footsteps. You're going to be a badass. Kane is truly impressive. I love that scene in the park where he is beating up all the bullies and stuff. I love that they try to like come at him with a BMX bike, which is the most 80s offensive move for a kid ever. Like, get him! And he's just throwing dirt in their face and kicking all their asses. It's absolutely amazing. And that's like shortly after the movie starts. Like, they get to America and then it like cuts to a scene of that. Yeah. And and that's basically the whole movie. It's just sort of like action scene, little bit of dialogue, action scene, it's constant. And I'm actually shocked at how well choreographed some of these sequences are. They're actually pretty well put together. They certainly got a lot of coverage for every little fight they did.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
It's such a lean, mean film. I almost think like Hollywood could learn something from a movie like this today. It's a 90-minute movie that goes by like that. And it wasn't a very expensive movie, and yet they accomplished so much on such a low budget.
Case in point, the extended on-foot van chase, like after they've stolen the dolls back, with Kosugi chasing the mafia goons in the van, he's jumping over cars and walls and running down, kicks through the windshield of the van. There's an extended inside the van, and it's all moving. I mean, this is all happening real time. He punches, he throws everybody out of the van. That goes into a tomahawk battle with Chief, and then he whips all of their asses. Then the van starts up again, and it all starts going again, and he's beat to hell. I was like, I could watch this one sequence like every morning with my coffee to like start my day. It's amazing. I wanted to rewind it and watch it again immediately. It was so good.
It's amazing. It's phenomenal. And speaking of Chief, we have to talk about Chief.
Yes,
because why does an Italian mobster have a Native American hitman and who is named Chief?
If anybody gets in your way, Chief, scalp them.
Scalp them. Oh, so that's like another 80s thing, though, because the Toxic Avenger Part 2 has that opening fight scene, and they're just like, let's just, be completely insensitive to like as many people as possible. Yeah. And you've got the Native American guy, and you've got the, just... You
have to have all of your bases, yeah.
Never Fly Today. It would never fly today.
None of these movies, period, would fly, like, just on a basic conceptual level, would not really work.
And the actor who played Chief, actually, I looked him up. His name is Don Shanks, because I was like, the guy actually looks indigenous, but that was plenty of white dudes, that they cast as, like, an Indian, quote-unquote. But he apparently actually was Cherokee, and he was a stuntman, and he was in a lot of movies, and oddly, he played Michael Myers in Halloween 5.
What?
Whoa!
So, yeah, his name's Don Shanks, and he ended up in the one ninja movie that actually has like a slasher sequence. So that's kind of interesting.
Amazing! Wow. Okay. Wow. I did not. That's a fascinating piece of trivia. I know that he was credited wrong on this film. I believe like
it was like Dan or they got his name wrong somehow.
Yeah, or they got his last name wrong or something. Yeah, they completely credit him wrong on this film. It's one of the many things in this film that's like totally WTF. It's like, but speaking of Guy Fano, I loved Guy Fano. Like, actually, I thought he was a very good. I thought it's a really good performance too. He's a great villain. Every scene Guy Fano was in, he was just chewing the scenery, and I loved every second of it.
Oh yeah, he was a great villain.
He's great. Just all of it, yeah. And I love the whole assassination sort of montage. Like, it just goes from one henchman after the other, and he just kills them. He kills one, like their nephew, in a jacuzzi.
I like that Braden's mask. He's got this silver mask on with the little piece of cloth covering the nose like a ninja. And then during the major fight at the end, the cloth gets pulled off to reveal that the mask goes all the way down with this big terrifying grin. And I was like, well, why even cover it with a piece of cloth? Why not just have the mask?
Why not lead with the scary grin?
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I'm actually kind of glad they did, because it gives you like this other like level in that final battle and stuff.
That's true, yeah.
Which also does bring up the only truly outward, because a lot of these movies have some outwardly supernatural things, but this movie has that one moment where Braden has magical glowing green hypnotic eyes where he hypnotizes Kathy, and it's just one time toward the end of the movie, and it's like, well, what, buddy, why didn't you just lead with that? You could have just hypnotized Kaifado to give you the money, and we wouldn't have had to do it. But he probably wanted to do all of the stalking and killing, so yeah.
Probably.
Braden has a lot of things going on that I'm like, what? How in the actual hell did you get all this stuff up to that rooftop? For one of the things, he has like a paper mache layer of himself that gets cut in half, and you're like, were you just hauling that around? Like, what the hell? Or did you just already have that stage somewhere? Like, what the fuck? Like,
I had to watch that like a second time because it's getting late, and I'm like, wait, what just happened? He's a robot? That was the first thing my brain went to.
Yeah. The robot hand in the jacuzzi also in that same sequence. It's like, where did he get that from?
Yeah. So many weapons he pulls out, like, just as he's going, and you're like, what the actual hell? Where did you get some of this? And it didn't even make sense to me as a 7-year-old watching this. Like, I was like, I don't buy this. Also, speaking of, like, hiding weapons, Sho Kosugi, and he gets his mask pulled down, and he blows all these, like, spikes in this guy's face.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, did you just have that in your mouth this whole time? Like, what was going on? You're, like, gargling it? Like, mouthwash? Like, what the fuck, dude?
I know, was he pulling a Houdini? Had he, like, regurgitated those from inside and then was blowing them out?
He's regurgitated. Yeah, it doesn't make a lot of sense, but you don't care in these movies. So
no.
You can't watch these movies with like too much of a logical thing. Or if you can, just prepare to laugh, because it's just pure fun. Also, can we talk a little bit about Kathy and her lack of clothing in this film?
Yes.
Pantsless fighting.
Oh, you forgot your pants. That was my...
Bars and no pants.
Yes.
So much of it was just an excuse to have her like half naked throughout the movie.
Oh, the rampant misogyny in all these films is... Well, there's so much more of it in the film coming up, but yeah.
Also, yeah, although in this one, the rape scenes are extremely uncomfortable. Those are like, I think they're maybe one step a little too far. It was kind of Braden's one redeeming moment when he comes back and, you know, he's seeing Kathy being sexually assaulted by this, you know, she's like, he's like, I just told you to watch her. He just kills the guy.
I know, and I got excited to see Toru Tanaka when you first see him. Like, watch her, and I'm like, oh man, this is going to be awesome. And then it's like, oh, he sexually assaults Kathy and then gets garroted to death by Braden, and he's in the movie for like 20 seconds. And I'm like, oh man, what a waste and how horrible.
What are some other thoughts about Revenge of the Ninja?
I really loved the park scene brawl between Cho and Dave and essentially the Karate Village people. That was really great. I loved when Cho chopped the cowboy's mustache in half with his fan.
Oh, that was so great.
And I love that everyone was just sitting around watching and oohing and eyeing. And as a kid of the 80s, that's kind of like a fantasy. That like you hope something like that will break out. That just like ninjas will be all over the place, you know, and ninja fight might break out at any minute. You know, it's either that or the Ghostbusters will show up or something. It just felt very, very 80s.
The Cobra Kai is doing a lot of that, but I found all of these films more interesting than the last season or two of Cobra Kai. It was the same kind of thing. Any second, a ninja fight might happen, but I bought it more in these films. The reality had already been set up. I'm like, all right.
You're right. I was thinking the same thing. Criminal syndicate of village people, like that's hanging out, that have the drop on what's going on in the streets. are not doling out information without a fight. I love the costumer that day must just been like, I didn't even know this scene was happening. Let me see what I got in the van. It's truly an amazing hodgepodge. Or not. Or that's just par for the course with this, with all these films in the 80s. I saw a slightly different version of this film growing up in my dad's video store, and I noticed that watching it this time. Particularly the end when like he slashes Braden and cuts his mask. There's all this blood that spurts out everywhere. That was not in the version I saw. I believe that was cut out. Most of it is, but that one really stuck out to me. I was like, I don't remember that at all. I don't remember that massive blood splatter. I think they cut out a few frames and stuff, probably to get an R rating.
They probably did. It's quite a bloody movie. Like, even by today's standards.
It's amazing, though, that's the thing that would that would kind of all the other things in this movie, that was the thing, like, well, you better trim that back, fellas, if you want an R rating. It's like, what about the killing in the jacuzzi and stabbing Ninja Grandma? No, that one. No, the blood hose, that's a bridge too far. But yeah, I mean, what did you guys think of the final duel in this film?
Pretty great. Went on a little bit long, but I might be like have less testosterone than most. Even the end fight of Lethal Weapon, I'm like, what? I get bored.
Yeah, I can see it. It was a little lengthy, but sort of knowing the low budget of this movie, I was just in awe at how it kept going. And how impressive some of the stunts were, and I'm like, holy shit. And then, obviously, I read up later, and yeah, like you said, Brad, it took 2 weeks, and I'm like, yeah, would I had to have. I really have to hand it to them for throwing everything in the kitchen sink at it, because it was wild.
It's epic. It's so elaborate and involved, and I actually love how long it is. I used to just watch the end of this film over and over when I was a kid. Just because I loved this rooftop duel between the two ninjas. It's truly impressive, just because he has so many weapons. He has a flamethrower at one point that he busts out, and tonfas and shurikens, and just I mean, multiple swords, and as you said, robot hands. It's like, what? Like, so much stuff. It's amazing. But yeah, I love all the different weaponry in it as well. Which I guess Sho Kosugi, like, built most of the weapons in the film by hand. Like, he actually made the weapons. Yeah, like, he's...
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah, I don't know. That was like one of the IMDb trivias. I was like, what? He made all the weapons for the film too? Or maybe he oversaw them being made, like, for accuracy and stuff, just because he is a master of the ninjutsu art as well. Amongst others, he's like a master in Aikido and all kinds of jujitsu and whatnot.
Jesus.
Yeah, it's crazy. He's truly a badass on many levels. So if you would like to view this magnificent film, Revenge of the Ninja, you can stream it for free on Tubi. It was at one point on Blu-ray, but now it's out of print in the States. But I believe there's some imports as well if you would like to get a hard copy of the film. Any kind of closing thoughts about Revenge of the Ninja?
It's not a closing thought. It's more of a random anecdote that since it is the Canon group. So basically watching this film, it cracked me up because it's a Canon film, and Canon films are notoriously crazy, and even more notoriously is the Canon owners, Menachem and his cousin, often didn't apparently know what the plots always were for the films they were signing off on. They just knew, this is big right now, we should do this. These guys did Masters of the Universe, and my friend Barbara actually worked as a first AD on Masters of the Universe and told me the most amazing story about how in Masters of the Universe, the plot of that film is that, He-Man and his friends are trying to find a cosmic key, and the prop kept malfunctioning. And so every night she's writing the shoot log, delay 1 hour, cosmic key, delay 3 hours, cosmic key. And she gets a call from Menachem in the middle of the night from the production office having a conniption. He goes, we have to fire this man. We can't afford this. We can't afford the film to go over budget like this. She goes, what do you mean? He goes, all the delays. We need to fire him. Fire who? Cosmic key, every single day. 3 hour delay, cosmic key, 2 hours, cosmic key.
That's incredible.
That's classic. They're fascinating producers to me. They're a huge part of my childhood, and this is actually, to me, the beginning of the Canon films that we're going to discuss on this show. We're going to discuss quite a few, so everything from Chuck Norris to a lot of his films to possibly even Masters of the Universe. I'm trying to find a way to weave that in at some point. They were interesting because they really had lofty ambitions for, like, bigger films, even though they started out in sort of the low-budget world. And they produced everything from, like, Barfly to, like, a Cassavetes film, like Love Streams.
Christ, they did Barfly?
But yeah, I think once they got into, like, Over the Top and Superman 4 and all that kind of stuff, they kind of bitten off more than they can chew because they really brought their low-budget mentality into kind of the big-budget world. They were always trying to cut corners. I know on, like, Masters of the Universe, the skull mask that Frank Langella wears, they wanted to do this full animatronic mask for him, and they were like, it's too expensive. And it's just like, it's just some, like, a prosthetic piece. It's almost like a Halloween mask that he's wearing.
Yeah.
Although, strangely, Langella is so good in that, he goes beyond that makeup, the shoddy makeup. But yeah, they did that a lot, especially if you ever watch the effects in Superman 4. They really cut a lot of corners with that. They are rough. They cut the budget like halfway through the movie. They cut it in half.
Or
something like that. And everybody was just very disappointed because it should have been a much bigger film for them. But
it's a Superman movie. I mean, come on.
Yeah, you can't cut corners.
They got Gene Hackman back for it. It should have been great. But they also hired a Chippendale for the bad guy. So, yeah. Classic Menachem. classic Canon.
You got Menachem.
Sorry, kids. Yeah, they were notorious. They would just shoot out an idea, like the dancing in the ceiling thing in Breakin' 2, if you've ever seen that. that just came from like Menachem. He was just like, hey, how about Gene? You know, like the thing with Gene Kelly. I love that old film. And they're like, let's put that in Break-In, and it didn't really fit in the movie. It's like, why is this happening now? But it's happening because Menachem wanted it to, and he shouted at everybody in the office the other day, and now that's what we're making. So here we are.
The magic of film.
Yeah, well, especially canon films. They were truly one of a kind. They're gonzo in a lot of ways. Speaking of gonzo canon movies, let's discuss our next film, Ninja 3: The Domination.
Oh, yes.
He is the most feared and powerful warrior. A ninja who breaks from ancient tradition and explodes onto America. His soul possesses the body of an innocent woman and transforms her into a lethal assassin. Who are you? I want to help her. Only a ninja can destroy a ninja. Her only hope is Yamada, the master ninja, who has been sent to destroy him. Where Revenge of the Ninja left off, Ninja 3 begins. An epic struggle of superhuman strength and supernatural forces. Ninja 3: The Domination.
All right. So, Gray, can you synopsize this crazy gonzo film, Ninja 3: The Domination, for everybody?
Just as Waylon said, I will give it my best shot. So, Ninja 3, to me, oddly, I think is the most family-friendly of all the movies we've been watching. It's almost a PG movie compared to everything else, in everything except its insanity. So, our movie starts with a daring, broad daylight ninja raid on a golf course where a rich scientist, I guess, is assassinated by a ninja. We don't know, it doesn't matter. Ninjas, they're hired to kill people, fine. Basically every cop in Phoenix is called to the golf course, and this results in a delightfully insane and also delightfully well choreographed and thought out chase and fight scene between one ninja and a bajillion cops. The cops eventually track him down and riddle him with about 197 bullets, and just when they think he's dead, he, poof, vanishes in a cloud. And then he only pops up again when we see our heroine, Christy, the, again, delightful Lucinda Dickey. She is a Hightower telephone lineswoman / aerobics instructor who is working on a telephone line when our mysterious ninja assassin, bloodied and beaten and shot full of holes, stumbles up to her. She starts to run off, but then he pleadingly offers her his sword. And in a really effective, actually, sort of Sauron and the Ring of Power meets the Vulcan mind meld moment, he passes on his memories and soul, I guess, possesses Christy with them, and all the memories of the cops who have just killed him. So from this point on, she is haunted by the need to seek vengeance on these cops. But she tries to also go about her life, sort of jazzercise the evil demon out of her head every time it gets into her mind. But that consistently doesn't work. And throughout this investigation, she actually ends up falling in love with one of the cops who shot and helped shoot and kill the ninja. And it's interesting that they fall madly in love because they don't go on a single date and they only have revolting sex involving a can of V8 juice. I'm sure we'll get back to that.
Yes.
Don't spoil it, Gray. We got
Yeah. I had to take a break at that moment in the film when I paused it right as she poured the V8 on her neck. That's it. It was just on my screen, perplexing me for 5 minutes. I left the apartment. I'm like, what the fuck? I came back. I'm like, what the fuck?
In time, you had to leave the apartment. That's understandable.
I had to go buy some V8.
V8. You don't leave mid V8.
Spicy V8, the best kind.
So Christy is battling these inner demons, and she eventually fails. She is fully possessed by this mysterious spirit of the ninja, and ends up killing one of the cops. She's having mysterious blackouts. Billy's trying to help her, but he's pretty ineffectual. Except he does learn of this mysterious mystic who ends up being played by James Hong, who's supposed to be a Japanese mystic. James Hong, famously Chinese-American actor, but whatever. It's Ninja 3, The Domination. I'm sure they were just pleased to get James Hong. He tries an exorcism to pull the ninja spirit out. That fails miserably, but it does reveal that this ninja assassin is the Black Ninja. And it reveals the key plot point: only a ninja can destroy a ninja. Which is fortunate, because we've noticed, creeping around, watching everything that's been going on, has been a mysterious Japanese man with one eye, who of course is Sho Kosugi, playing the character of Yamada. And as the movie goes on, we discover that the Black Ninja actually killed his master, I'm assuming. They never say. We just see him killing an old man. I'm assuming it was his master. They end up teaming together with Yamada and going to a ancient temple that's in the mountains of Phoenix and extracting the ninja's soul from Christie and implanting it back into the Black Ninja so that Sho Kosugi can fight the Black Ninja once and for all and destroy him. Which he does after a protracted and pretty good battle involving some possessed monks and many other things. And then the movie ends with Billy and Christie making out in a very silly manner, with Christie in a horrible wig because she had already cut her hair for another movie.
I wondered what was happening.
And then it ends like all of these movies end, and this is wonderful, and I truly do mean it. The movie just ends with no coda. The credits roll, the movie's over. And I do appreciate that about all of these films.
Great synopsis, Gray. Waylon, I know you had not seen this film before either. I don't think you'd seen any of these films. What were your thoughts about the insane movie that is Ninja 3, The Domination?
You know what's funny? I don't know what's wrong with me. I found it less insane than I'd read it was going to be. For me, the craziest part of the film was just that I was like, why didn't they already start out with her and the cop already dating? Why did we have to have the introduction of their relationship inserted into the beginning of this movie? Which was also kind of weird because they were trying to do... It was almost like they went, let's do Flashdance meets Enter the Dragon or something.
That is exactly what this is.
Yep.
Flashdance was a huge hit. Menachem was like, we got to do another Ninja movie, but I wanted to be like Flashdance. So that's how we ended up with Ninja 3.
But they were like, we can't do a female empowerment film without also having her give in to the advances of this pushy cop, because essentially she's like, I have no interest in dating you. You're an asshole pig. And then he goes, fine, if you don't want to date me because I'm a cop, I don't want anything to do with you. At which point she goes, never mind, come home with me. And then there's a whole gratuitous sex scene with the pouring V8 on her neck, which he licks off. And then the plot kind of gets moving after that. But it's such a weird side road to take. I couldn't figure it out.
Oh, it's a weird side road, all right.
Yeah.
So many side roads to take to get to the final confrontation of this movie.
It's like they had to dial back, like you're saying, Waylon. They couldn't do the full-on female empowerment thing, but they wanted the Flashdance part. Because I was watching it with AE, and she was like, every single point, she was like, okay, aerobics instructor, okay, her hair, okay, she rides a bike,
yes,
okay, her apartment. She's like, everything was Flashdance. And then it's like,
what a feeling.
Turned on by toxic masculinity felt to me like, oh, that's our way of getting us back into a martial arts movie. We can't have this be too. And both of us were like, oh man, but whatever. Some people get turned on by V8 and toxic masculinity, I guess.
That was just my hangover cure. What?
Yeah, there's so much to talk about in this movie. I don't even know where to begin. Maybe the Maybe actually start, the black ninja has been killed at the golf course, which is quite a sequence unto itself. But what I love, though, is that right after that scene, more or less, after, Christy meets this black ninja and is handed the sword and our possession adventure begins, the officer who has just literally watched all of his friends get murdered in front of him decides, hey, let's hit on this witness girl. In the, it's just like, did the last scene not just happen? Where are you right now, man? It's
in the 80s.
Yeah, it's one of the most 80s movies I think ever made. From, the video game machine, like shooting a laser tunnel out of it with smoke, to her entire apartment, like everything in her apartment, to the fact that she is indeed an aerobics instructor, which was this big new thing in the 1980s. All of it. It's so 80s. It's incredible.
I kept waiting for Christy to get sucked into the video game cabinet a la Tron or something like that.
Yeah.
And then
yes.
nothing actually happened. But I was like, damn, that looked cool. But then I realized right after she had all the light was playing around her eyes, I was like, oh, she got the racist facelift. Maybe that's what the video game did to her. Because you notice she gets the racist facelift every now and then.
Oh, yes.
It's not all the time. Just at particularly intense moments, I guess.
I couldn't believe that. Yeah, I was like, really? Did they really just do that? Yeah, they did. They did. So, that's some racist facelift every time she's fully possessed. Oh, boy.
And that brings up, like you're saying, there's so much more. There's also Poltergeist getting sucked into the closet. There's obviously The Exorcist, duh. There's so many influences in here that I'm glad there are. It's just this wonderful mishmash.
Yeah, it's quite the pastiche of what was popular at that time. Menachem was like, Flashdance is popular, let's get that. Poltergeist was a big hit, let's put some of that in. The Exorcist, which, at that time was still one of the most successful films ever made, let's get that element in there. And also, it's a sequel to our last ninja film. I guess we should put that out there. None of the ninja trilogy that Cannon did have anything to do with one another. So if you want to jump in and watch Ninja 3 before Enter the Ninja, it doesn't matter. You can watch these in any order you want. Sho Kosugi plays a completely different character in each one of these films. They have no relationship to one another, except they all use the same music. So that they're all produced by Cannon. Other than that, that's about it.
I did think that all the music sounded very similar. I didn't put together that it was all the exact same music.
Exact same theme, yeah. Down, 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 down. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Which I actually love the music in this. I think it's actually
that's great.
Pretty great score. It's almost like every scene in this movie, there's something to talk about, though. I mean, from her, crushing the pool ball with her hand, which...
Oh, so cool.
I'm just like, what? You can't do that. She crushed it like paper.
I figured, it was a callback, because this the Black Ninja crushes the golf ball on the golf course.
Yeah, little
that
throwback
scene. To that. Mm-hmm. It's like the Wild Bunch of ninja movie scenes. It was just... Plus, there's something a little satisfying about watching a guy go running rampage on a golf course. It's kind of like, yeah.
I had that exact thought. I was like, can I rent this guy for the golf course down the street? Just, nobody did anything wrong. I just want to see this waste of space. Like it's all golf courses. I just want to see somebody take it out.
George Carlin would have been happy, didn't he? He had that whole bit where he was saying that we should just turn golf courses into low-income housing.
Yes.
Yeah.
During the exorcism, did anybody think that he was going to dump her after this? That was the first thought that went into my head.
Yeah.
Like, he just met this girl. He's taken her to an exorcist. I mean, yeah, I don't know. Like, he's watching her. She's clearly possessed now. He knows this. And he had a look on his face like, I got to get out of this relationship. But I'll give him props. He stuck with her.
Yeah.
And saw it through all the way. Yeah, there's just so many little moments in this, like her eating yogurt on the cop's desk, just looking really sexy with her legs up. And also, it doesn't make sense, the whole twist thing, because every time she sees one of his cop buddies, she's like, oh, I gotta kill this guy. He was one of the people that shot me. And yet they save it for towards the end of the film that her boyfriend was also one of those guys. But it doesn't make any sense because you're seeing this guy every day. Why did all the other ones were obvious to you, but this one, not so much? Was it the V8 that blinded you?
I was almost hoping that when she first got together with the cop, I was like, maybe they're going to lean into some kind of a homoerotic thing, like the spirit of that ninja is just like, he killed me, but he's cute, I'm into it.
And yeah, that's fantastic. We hoped against hope that in that where he goes to the aerobics class just to hit on her, that maybe he was just going to turn out to be gay and was just looking for a fun friend that was an aerobics instructor, because he's wearing like a ballet short and like a ballet shirt and like short shorts. We were like,
yes,
maybe he's just going to be like the gay best friend. And we're like, nah, we're not that lucky.
Damn it. Well, we should remake this film.
I also love that a fight breaks out outside of the aerobics class.
Yeah.
She's full on kicking ass in her aerobics gear. And the cop that's stalking her is just like watching from a distance. It's like, why don't you do something?
And again, just like in Revenge of the Ninja, there's just a bunch of 80s people standing. There's like 30 people. Why aren't you stopping this? But everybody's just standing around oohing and eyeing again.
Yeah.
And I like when she breaks up the rape, too. It's not like, oh my God, you were trying to rape a woman. She's like, come on, guys, give it a rest. Stop trying to rape people.
I know.
Like, dude, were the 80s that horrible? I mean, the 70s just happened.
No.
Reagan really did a number.
No. Do not take this reality from Menachem as even indicative of much of anything. Like, we're in another universe with these two producers. No, especially Ninja 3. This is like, it's like a movie made by someone from Pluto. I mean, it's truly like The Room or something. It's on that kind of level of like, what the fuck. I also loved that he had like an El Camino makeshift Hearst. At one point,
we called that the Phoenix Hearse.
I was like, wait a minute, that's an El Camino. Speaking of the set dresser, I really feel like the set dressers were on a lot of LSD when they were set decking her warehouse loft apartment. There is just so many random, bizarre fucking things in that apartment. Yeah, I guess it all had to be a set because they're doing like shaking and like some of the stuff they had to do. I don't think that's an actual location. That had to have been a set of sorts.
It was a warehouse set. I actually watched. I have this on Blu-ray, and I watched the special features with Lucinda Dickey, and she talked about that apartment was a warehouse set that where she gets sucked into the closet. That was actually a whole gimbaled set that rose up, so she's actually upside down. Blah blah blah, yada yada. So that that whole thing was a set.
Yeah, a lot of that was very kind of evil. I got some Evil Dead 2 vibes from it.
Me too.
Yes, totally.
And this predates Evil Dead 2
by a few years,
as well. Yeah.
Oh wow.
I know what'll make me forget my weird loft is haunted. I'll play some bad music and dance.
I loved that part. And I surprisingly was kind of on board with it. I was like, okay, I see what they're doing here. It's insane, but at that point, it's like a drop in the bucket.
It's a cumulative effect this movie has.
Yeah, you're like, it's like the third spin on the roller coaster, so I'm just...
You're just with it at that point. You're just like, well, nothing else has made sense in this movie, and everything is what the fuck, so why not?
Exactly.
And it kind of sort of worked for her a couple of times earlier in the movie.
Although I love that the floating sword came out as like, fuck your music! Wah!
Yes.
And then, speaking of fucked up scenes, the funeral archery massacre. Like, these grieving folks are being just shot with arrows, like, left and right. I was like, wow, that's pretty fucked up, actually.
Yeah, that was the one I mentioned earlier that I felt this was almost a family-friendly movie, minus the toxic masculinity and misogyny. But as far as just, prurient content. But then that scene kind of wrecked that with the arrow to the neck and I was like, oh, there's some actual violence here. Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, Gray, I know you used to be a grave digger, so you can probably answer this. Those tombstones seem to be made out of, like, paper. I can't imagine you could just hit a tombstone with, like, a police baton and smash it in half. It's
No, you couldn't. Yeah. Now, you definitely could punch one to pieces if you're a ninja.
Yeah, of course. Well, they could do all. Well, they could also drill into the ground and do all kinds of things in this film.
Yeah. They are heavy. My sister actually gave me a tombstone as a birthday present because she actually also worked at a cemetery. There was a headstone. It was going to be discarded because they needed to get a new one made. So I had this headstone. I carted around with me to various apartments until Amy was finally like,
with the tombstone again. Oh,
yeah, totally.
geez.
But I got worried when we moved here. It's a second floor apartment. I'm like, I feel like it's going to just like go through the floor and kill my neighbor. So,
oh my gosh. That's quite the thing to cart around as you move.
yeah.
Does it say Judith Myers on it or anything? Or just...
How did you know? I forget the name of the guy on it, but it was a nice conversation piece to have in the living room for a while.
Nice.
And then that was, of course, until you broke it in half with a police baton, right?
Yeah.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah. Well, at least moving will be easier now.
Yes, much easier. Plus, I got worried. I was trying to, having a headstone in your house, it feels like the plot of the beginning of a horror film. Crack the headstone open, red light starts coming out of it.
Oh, yeah. Smoke.
All the food, smoke, yeah. Your voices telling me to do stuff. Other voices.
Floating sword. Another thing I noticed in that funeral scene was that the cops are the worst shots in film history. Like, she's climbing up a tree pretty slowly with, like, bear claws, and they can't hit her. They're just missing, like, left and right, one after the other. There's so many gonzo moments in this film. What was like one of your favorite scenes?
Oh God, it'd probably be when the Black Ninja is revived from the dead. I actually thought that was kind of spooky. He rises up. I was like, oh shit.
Yeah, I love the point where Sho Kosugi stabs him, and the Black Ninja holds the wound, and then just lets out this horrendous animal ghost shriek, and then possesses all of the monks. That was actually a pretty scary moment.
Yeah, the monk possession's great.
Oh yeah, that was a good idea. Like he starts just possessing all the monks in the temple there and like sinking them on Sho Kosugi. That was great. Yeah, some of that sort of. Do y'all know who Soy Hark is? He made like a Chinese Ghost Story and Zoo Warriors and stuff around this time. I wonder if they had seen some of Soy Hark, because some of this stuff in the end sort of a little bit reminds me of some of the Soy Hark stuff that he was doing around that time. But let's talk a little bit about the final duel in this, because as gonzo crazy as Revenge of the Ninja's final duel was on the rooftop,
oh yes,
this one is like a whole other level. It's totally supernatural. There's at one point the Black Ninja drills into the ground.
I was just about to say my other favorite part.
Causing a minor earthquake, yeah.
I don't know. What did y'all think about the sort of gonzo madness that is this final duel in this one?
I was into it. Yeah, I mean, at least they had the common courtesy in the opening golf course scene to establish that in the time it took a smoke bomb to go off, the Black Ninja was able to completely bury himself in the ground. So I was like, okay. So maybe he can just drill like a top straight down into the ground.
Yeah, indeed he can.
But he's drilling for so long, and they're just watching him. And I'm like, but somebody grab this guy. It reminded me of like The Howling when the guy's transforming for seemingly 10 minutes. The woman is just standing there. And you're like, you could leave.
And then the Tonto knife in the head, though, to like take out the Black Ninja. That was pretty awesome, actually. That was a pretty satisfying kind of final kill. I was like, how are you gonna get out of this Black Ninja? There's a knife in your head.
That's pretty final. I can imagine there was a lot of back and forth between. I'm sure they didn't know right up until the last minute how they were going to kill this guy. Knowing canon, they were probably like, we gotta kill this guy. Just stick a knife in his head. You can't get any better than that.
Plus, like, if you're going to kill a villain, there's nothing like a head injury to really give you that, like, satisfaction, like, short of a decapitation.
Yeah.
Also, I love that the Black Ninja keeps all of his weapons in a cave. In a chest that's very similar to Sho Kosugi's, like, glowing chest. What is up with their, like, chest? Like, here's a light box with all your weapons inside of it. But he has his light box inside of a cave.
Yeah, inside of a cave that looks like it's right beside the golf course. I was like, wait,
Right.
so did Christie go back to the golf course to get the magic weapons?
And a backup costume, apparently, too.
Yeah.
Right? Trying to thread the logic between this movie it's a fool's errand for sure. Once finally Sho Kosugi, which is interesting, we've hardly talked about Sho Kosugi in this because he's kind of in a minor role, and I guess actually Sho Kosugi, he was so kind of pissed off about Ninja 3 because he went from being the lead to being kind of a minor role. He had kind of a sexist response about it too. He's like, wait a minute, a woman? You made a woman who's not even a martial artist? I mean, it's a fair point about the martial artist point. And he's playing like sort of second fiddle in this. And yeah, it kind of pissed him off. So he kind of left canon after this. This was sort of his exit from working with those producers and stuff. So
It's kind of a shame because I actually thought it was cool that he showed up as sort of at the end, and he's still got such a cool presence. You know what I mean? Like, he kind of makes the third act really what it is.
No, 100%. I think he just, he was disappointed that he wasn't the lead. I think he also didn't like how supernatural and kind of gonzo Ninja 3 was as well. So I think he was just, it was a bridge burn with him and Menachem.
Shame it's not nearly as crazy as 9 Deaths, but we'll get to that later.
Yep. Lots to say about that film when we get to it. Any other thoughts, closing thoughts, before we move on to our next film?
I will go to my grave with nightmares of the actor who played Billy having to clean the V8 juice out of his prodigious body hair. After that,
It made me feel better about any body hair I have. I'm like, at least it's not like that.
That man is part gorilla.
Indeed. There's that scene where he discovers her sword. AE and I almost essentially made the same joke at the same time. It's so sharp you could shave with it. Please shave with it.
Please, for God's sakes, go get a wax job. Yeah. Oh, poor bastard. Well, I think that's a very good note to leave on. All right, and for folks out there that want to catch Ninja 3, it's not technically streaming anywhere, but you can pick up a physical media copy of it. There's a great disc out there from Shout Factory with a lot of amazing features and stuff. This is definitely one to watch again and again if you have the time. Well, from the world of possessed aerobic instructors to a gritty ninja revenge film, it's time that you all pray for death.
He came to America to escape his past.
You will always be a ninja.
Now, his wife. His children. His home and his honor must be defended.
If you just want protection, why don't you go hire yourself a private detective?
No ordinary man could do it alone. But this is no ordinary man. Pray for death.
It's gone far enough.
If we are all free to do what we like, I am free to kill those animals. Yeah.
Sho Kosugi. Shadow Warrior. Ninja, judge, and jury. Vengeance will be his. Pray for death. Please, kill me!
All right. Waylon, can you
Hello.
synopsize Pray for Death for our audience?
Yeah, yes, I can. I wrote it out this time too. I'm trying to be all professional here, but
Fancy.
yeah. I mean, I wrote it out like 10 minutes before I logged on to this call, but I wrote it.
Old last minute Waylon.
That's right. So Pray for Death is probably the most normal out of all the movies we've watched this week. So here we've got Sho Kosugi playing Akira, who's convinced by his wife to move to America to raise their two sons, once again played by Sho's real-life children, Kane Kosugi and Shane Kosugi. However, what his family doesn't know is that Akira is actually a ninja, surprise, surprise, and that many years before had been forced to kill his brother during a fight. Once they get to America, they end up buying a rundown restaurant with an apartment above. Unfortunately, this valuable necklace had been previously stashed in the floorboards of the old building, and a local crime boss, Mr. Newman, is determined to get it back. So Mr. Newman murders Sam Green, and then he sets his sights on Akira and his family, which forces Akira back to his ninja ways. There's a lot to like in this film, especially the truly terrifying Mr. Newman, played by the increasingly psychotic Michael Constantine. That being said, it's got some quirky moments. It's got the first of two 007-style credit sequences, although this one, actually, when I was watching it, I looked at Amy and I went, this is like the Ninja Do the Right Thing opening, where it's got like a red screen. You've got Sho doing like, all kinds of like cool fancy sword moves and wipes and dissolves and stuff. And then it's got an amazing montage where he's getting ready to get his revenge, set to a song. How did it go? It was like Shadow.
Back to the
shadows. Which reminded me of the song Shadows of the Night from New Year's Evil, which interestingly, the director of New Year's Evil directed the next film we're going to talk about later.
Oh, wow. Interesting. Nice synopsis.
Thanks.
What did you think of this little ultra-violent opus?
I feel pretty similar to Waylon. It's the more hinged of the ones that we're watching. It's the more sort of traditional 80s revenge film, What I particularly liked about it was, apart from the fact that there is a lot of good action in it, there's a level of drama that's not in the others. That's a little more sincere, a little less campy. And it's the first time we see Sho Kosugi really doing something outside of his wheelhouse, which he's really lovable in this movie.
Yeah.
Part of that probably has to do with how much time he is around his own son. He's really cute and sweet with Shane and Kane, like in the family scenes. Smiling. He's playing like a doofy dad who isn't really a secret ninja. Like, it's a really nice dynamic in the beginning of the movie. When they're threatened, I buy it more than like in Revenge of the Ninja, where it's like, oh, everybody's dead, and he just has no reaction other than like instant, hard ass. And it almost felt more like a 70s gangster movie with the ninja element thrown in.
Well, yeah, this one's it is different from the canon ones. Obviously Sho Kosugi, he'd kind of broken up with canon after Ninja 3, so he'd started to kind of venture into other production studios and did this one. Very similar in a lot of ways to Revenge of the Ninja in terms of like overall plot and whatnot. It's like, family immigrates, to the States, runs into trouble while they're here. He is resisting being a ninja and then comes back full force as a ninja again. In a lot of ways, very similar to Revenge of the Ninja, but very different tonally. As you mentioned, Gray, yeah, this one's a lot more grounded. And in a lot of ways, it's sort of, it's almost like a little more of a better filmed movie in a way. Like, it's got this sort of like anamorphic photography, and the lighting, I feel like, is a little bit better than some of the canon films as well. It has kind of a little bit more of a classy kind of polish to it in a lot of ways. Interestingly, the director of this, there was a show on television called The Master, starring Lee Van Cleef. Sho Kosugi was also on that show. He was a major consultant, and he also played the villain in that. And I remember him as the villain. He was like a ninja, black ninja who had this like chain mail kind of like hanging off his face, and I just thought that was like the coolest thing ever. I watched that show. I think I watched every episode of that show as it aired, but it was only on for like a year or two or something. It wasn't super popular. It was just popular with people that had been renting ninja films like me.
I remember seeing that as well, and that mask, and then of course the classic black mask with black eyeliner, but mostly the helmet mask combo from this movie, I think, is the most iconic Sho Kosugi look that I remember from childhood.
Oh, totally.
And I never even saw this movie as a kid. I just saw this image everywhere. The box, the magazines, yeah, it was everywhere.
Although this movie got banned, I guess. Like, my dad had it in his store, but then they stopped making it for a while. So it was so violent that I think they kind of pulled it from like shelves and stuff. So if your mom and pop video store was lucky enough to have bought it when it came out, they had it in circulation, but like you couldn't get it like a year or two later, from my understanding. So
and gritty violent, not goofy violent, like some
exactly.
Yeah,
and that's what sets it apart from the other two. They have more of a cartoony sensibility. It's interesting. The villain's not a ninja. It's a gangster. Which we've had that gangster element in the first film as well. This one, Limehouse, who I think is he's a great actor.
Fantastic.
Yeah, he does a fantastic job. I really love the mobsters in this film. Yeah, it's way more grounded, way more gritty, way more violent. And outside of the opening credit sequence, which is like this laser tunnel and bad fonts and like, you know, him practicing with his sword. Outside of that, it is a much more realistic kind of presentation of a ninja film in a way. And that's what actually my dad and we always loved about it. We were like, unlike the canon ones, which are goofy and fun and all that kind of stuff, this one was like it hit hard. Especially in that final battle, the ninja's getting hurt by an average person, by this gangster who is a complete psychopath. He's fucking him up. I mean, he's hit him with chains and saw blades and just throwing everything at him. And, it's not just that he's just dodging everything and smashing pool balls and stuff in this one. He's actually getting hurt throughout this in his encounters with these. He's getting shot. A little bit more of a grounded approach to a ninja film than the other two films that we discuss.
Yeah, it's like the power of the ninja versus the power of a professional psychopath, essentially.
I like how you don't realize he's that psychotic until the moment he slices his own wrist just so he can get into the hospital, so he can get at Akira's family. You're like, what's happening? And then when he goes about doing it, and then it's like Halloween 2 style, the way he goes about moving through the hospital and enacting his revenge. My jaw dropped. I was surprised.
Very macabre and fucked up. He's like, I'm gonna go kill his family in the hospital that my guy's already fucked up. Like, wow.
Yeah.
That was hardcore. Limehouse is a very formidable villain for Kosugi's ninja. The other thing I noticed about the gangsters, though, it is a little funny, is that all the parties they seem to be having are very Hugh Hefner-esque. It's just like scantily clad women and they're in pajamas and shit. And so it's kind of like, okay. So a little Hugh Hefner grotto style party going on at this gangster's house. But yeah, this is definitely, outside of a few little things like that, it's definitely like the least B movie of the Sho Kosugi films that I'm aware of. He did I think he did one other called Rage of Honor, that's not his B movie as well. But this one's, I don't know, it's like a grounded drama in a lot of ways, with very gritty action pieces and whatnot. It's interesting though, the action scenes I actually didn't care too much for until the end of the film. And then suddenly it took on like a whole new level. Like when he puts on the helmet, it kind of became a different level of an action movie. And he goes and invades the gangster's compound. And wow, like suddenly everything's very well choreographed and, composed and all this stuff. Like before, like there was a fight in like the truck and stuff. And I just thought it was like, it didn't seem like it was very well choreographed and whatnot. I was like, oh, okay, I'm liking this movie, but the action scenes seem a little like tamer compared to like, the previous Cannon films. But then it got to that, and it's like, oh shit, he's like jumping over cars and like doing all kinds of stuff, shooting arrows at him and blow darts, and like I was like, okay, now we're back into full on like good ninja action.
Yeah, well, they knew they had to get there eventually. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I think they just saved it. I think they were like, okay, let's keep it as a drama and gritty as possible. And outside of a couple of sequences, like the sort of sneaking onto the boat, which I thought that was very interesting. That Limehouse lives on a giant ship of sorts out in the harbor.
It wasn't even like a yacht. It was like a industrial steamer.
Yeah, it was like what? Like why is he on here hosting parties and stuff like at a bar or something? But that was very, very interesting. Just an interesting touch, but probably they were just like, we need a big place, like a compound. What can we get? Or like ended up with this boat, but it's effective. It kind of adds another dimension to Limehouse, I thought. But yeah, what did you guys think? That mannequin warehouse battle. I couldn't help but think of that early Kubrick film, Killer's Kiss, because they have a big battle in the mannequin warehouse in that film as well. But what did you guys think of that? I thought that was an amazing backdrop for that.
Yeah, it was fantastic. Yeah. And for this movie, they did exactly what they should have with it, which is they didn't rely on a bunch of silly gags with the mannequins. Had this been one of the Cannon movies, I feel like it would have gone full like tourist trap. There would have been like mannequins popping out and like it would have been just ridiculous. But this, it was just a spooky background to like a very good fight. Yeah.
Yeah, it has a little bit of a horror film element with the mannequins, the way they, they captured everything and edited it all together. It is. It's way more spooky, and I think we've talked about it, like the HMI lighting they use. But they used it a lot more really effectively in this. I thought it just had a really cool look. This place that they're at is bizarre, though, because it's like a mannequin warehouse, and then there's like a lumber mill or something.
Yeah, it's like, wait, what?
Yeah.
All the heavy stuff is on the second floor, and it's a lumber mill. What?
Yeah, it's like, and that's where Kosugi decided, hey, let's make this our base camp, Kane, and we got to trick out your bike also for when these gangsters show up. Which that was the other big 80s moment in this movie for me, was the tricked out bicycle for Kane Kosugi, with the colored smoke shooting off. All a spy hunters.
Yeah,
I loved that. I literally cheered while it was happening just by myself.
Yes,
in front of the
it's
computer.
so good. Yeah, I'm sure I even loved it more, when I was like 9 or something. It's like the BMX bike was my life then. So,
also a callback to Revenge of the Ninja and the kids in the park. The whole also very 80s is the kids coming out of the convenience store and being like, that's his bike. What are you doing? That's his bike. Where they try and take his bike.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, it's almost like. It's like let's remake Revenge of the Ninja, but in almost a realistic way. I mean, there's so many similarities between the two films, and yet they have enough differences, and tonally they're so different that this film really does stand on its own. I don't know. I kind of love this one overall. It's like it's not as like fun B-movie as the other two, but like, I don't know. There's something about this. It's just like it's kind of great. It's just like a good classic kick-ass ninja movie.
Oh yeah, I'm actually sad I did not get to watch this one with my dad. He would have loved this, and he was like an ex-cop too, so he loved like a good revenge against the criminals plot. So it would have been right up his alley. And I think this was actually the biggest moneymaker that Sho Kosugi made, from what I was reading. It did the best at the box office out of all of them.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's also amazing, too, considering how incredibly violent this film is. From a violence level, this one hits harder than any of the other ninja films, even though they're all fairly violent. But this one's like...
Oh, even the villain's death, which I won't reveal. You guys people just go in cold and experience that for themselves.
Yeah.
But it
doesn't show
grisly.
it, but it doesn't need to.
No, it's amazing. Yeah, it's that. I love all of that. I love the final duel with Limehouse. It's great. It really was quite good. It was great to rewatch. I had not seen this one. I'd seen Ninja 3 and I'd seen Revenge of the Ninja like at other points in my life. I'd rewatch them. This one I had not rewatched since I'd seen it in my dad's video stores. Yeah, I was like, and that's what I remembered about it. I remember my dad and I commenting. It was like, this one's kind of real. It's more realistic than all the other ninja films, and that sort of still stands today. So I remember my dad kind of loved this one, because he was a big Bruce Lee fan and stuff. He didn't always like the ninja movies, but he liked because they were so crazy, the candidates.
Yeah.
But he could get into this one. I remember he really dug this one. Any other thoughts about Pray for Death?
I like how in all of these movies they're all set in different cities, and if you pay attention, you can see things that give that away. And in this movie, did you notice the number of beaten up Ford pickup trucks that even high-end gangsters are driving around in? There's a few. There's 2 or 3. I think there's 3. There's at least 3 times. And I was like, why are all these pickup trucks everywhere? And I'm like, is it because they shot this in Houston, where there just a lot of pickup trucks around?
Yeah,
and it probably
that's what
was
they had access to.
Yeah.
So, everybody's got a pickup truck, so I guess we got to drive a pickup truck too.
Mm-hmm.
There's something about rural areas where there's a lot of white people. There also are a lot of pickup trucks, because we live right outside of Portland. And the difference between being in Portland and being in Beaverton is mostly just pickup trucks. They're just everywhere.
So a white person quota.
Yeah. They give it to you Bibles in hotel rooms as soon as you move out here. They're just white, living in the woods, have a pickup truck.
Here's your Gideon.
Have fun.
And here's your Chevy.
Yeah, and a pack of Miller High Life, the champagne of beers. Knock yourself out.
Champagne of beers. If you'd like to check out Pray for Death, you could stream it for free on Tubi. If you would like a physical copy, Arrow put out a really wonderful Blu-ray of this film, but it is currently out of print, so you'll have to do some digging to find that. That was a awesome, pleasant surprise, and a great rewatch as well. So, all right, well, from the gritty world of mobsters to elite rescue units, and elite should be used in quotes, let's discuss our final film, 9 Deaths of the Ninja.
Sho Kosugi, Ninja Master, Ninja Warrior, Ninja Terror, is now the Ninja Vigilante in 9 Deaths of the Ninja. On the ground, in the air, underwater, in the city, in the jungle, in disguise, against an army, against a Hulk, and facing the challenge of the deadliest dark ninjas on Earth, Sho Kosugi, the modern master of 1,000 deaths, is the Ninja Avenger in the motion picture that's 9 times more exciting, more explosive, and more destructive than any ninja adventure before. A cat has 9 lives. Sho Kosugi has 9 deaths in 9 Deaths of the Ninja.
Gray, can you attempt to synopsize 9 Deaths of the Ninjas for our fearless listeners out there?
I don't envy you at all, Gray. Have fun.
Let the impossible attempt begin.
Yes.
All right.
Have fun with it. Have fun with it. Give us the weirdest Cliff Notes ever.
9 Deaths is bonkers in like a different way than all the others we've been discussing, in that it's a flat-out comedy, and it's not like in the Jackie Chan action comedy way. It's more of like a spoof on exploitation actioners of the 70s and 80s, while also still being an actioner, an 80s actioner at the same time. So we start by being introduced to an elite rescue and fighting / spy unit called the Dark Unit, composed of Spike Shinobi, who is Sho, and Steve Gordon and Jennifer Barnes. And we see this opening scene, raid scene, involving the three of them that is just utterly absurd. They're taking on a huge number of random turbaned people, we don't know, and it's just this completely absurd fight scene between 3 people and a giant army. Then as it comes to an end, you're like, and, you know, helicopters come out, and you realize, oh, this was all a training exercise. That's why it was so absurd. Well, no. This is the least absurd thing in the movie. When the movie actually starts, and the action starts, it gets much crazier. So then, we cut to Manila, where a busload of tourists is kidnapped by an army of crazed, drug-smuggling terrorists bent on world domination. These terrorists are commanded by Albie the Cruel, who is a wheel-bound Nazi with a monkey in a diaper, and his henchmen, Colonel Honey Hump and Dr. Wolf, and their army of terrorists. They have kidnapped these people and are going to execute hostages until their comrade Raji, who is a hulking, bug-eating, constantly cackling terrorist, is freed from prison. The Dark Unit is called in to take care of this. And the short and long of it is, this leads to utter insanity. It leads to inexplicable fights with little people in art museums, gun-toting prostitutes on floating pleasure ships, Sho Kosugi in old man drag fighting with a cane, and eventual death of bad guys in interestingly bizarre ways, from flashbang grenades in people's mouths to trampling deaths by polo horses. There you go. We can just dig into it from there.
Well done,
Bravo,
sir.
that was
well
amazing.
Done. That is how you synopsize this film. Because it's completely bug nuts. Okay, Waylon, what did you think of 9 Deaths of the Ninja?
Oh my god, I loved it. It kind of reminded me of Troma's War, but I liked it actually a little bit better. I had literally no idea where it was going to go, and I didn't care. I loved how, obviously, we talked about, the director of this film had previously been hired to make Enter the Revenge of the Ninja, and had been fired by the Cannon Group. And you can really see him putting everything he's got into this movie, no matter how insane it is. Even to the main terrorist, what was it, Dr. Cruelty?
Albie the Cruel.
Yeah, thank you. And he's 100% just doing Dr. Strangelove the entire time.
Yes, but he looks like Tom Waits.
Yeah, Tom Waits playing Dr. Strangelove in a Troma film would be the best way to describe that performance.
With a monkey in a diaper.
With a monkey in a diaper. And that was actually the moment I wasn't sure how I was going to feel about it until the monkey in the diaper showed up, at which point I went, I'm on board for this. This is going to be excellent. So many great what the fuck moments. Kane finally gets one of his best moments in this film as well. Kane Kosugi, where he goes and he lights the would-be rapist's butt on fire. This guy is trying to rape a woman on a bus, and he comes up and he just happens to have a can of kerosene, and he sprays it on the guy's underwear and lights it. It's fantastic.
One of my favorite parts of that scene is what is crazier, him lighting the rapist's butt on fire, or right before that, because what he does is he sneaks into this old man who is asleep on the bus in front of him, reaches into his shirt pocket, and pulls out a full can of kerosene and a Zippo lighter. And I'm like, what is crazier, what he does with them, or the fact that this old man is carrying around a full can of lighter fluid and a Zippo in his pocket?
Was he on a trip to immolate himself? Like, what the fuck? What's happening here? Why does he have that?
Actually, I'm glad you were paying attention, because I missed that. So I just thought the kid was running around with kerosene, and that makes less sense. Because, you need the kerosene to fill the Zippo. Maybe he was a smoker,
Oh, yeah,
heavy smoker.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah. There's the underwater pursual sequence where Sho Kosugi has they've gotten to the island in Manila. They're going to rescue everyone, but first I forget what the reason was, but they stop off on a boat that was supposed to be the welcoming committee for the terrorists, and he gets chased off the boat by these bikini-clad terrorist ladies who follow him under the water, and he doesn't actually beat them up. He just tears their bikinis off, and they're just like, "Oh my god!" And then he escapes. I'm like, I feel like these women wouldn't care.
Gun-wielding prostitutes in bikini with an underwater battle sequence in the tradition of Thunderball. Like, what the actual hell am I watching?
And have we discussed Kosugi's nickname, Lollipop? Which was like such a classic B-movie thing. Let's just find one quirk and that's just their whole personality. We need one thing to make them stand out, and they like lollipops. At the end where he's with the kids and he just hands them all lollipops, and everyone's like, yay!
Actually, I was sort of wondering, like, why do they call it Lollipop? And then they have that at the end. I was like, oh, okay. So
I guess he likes lollipops.
In the very opening scene, his tactical gear has lollipops on the arm.
I thought those were weapons, but I don't know. Or like they looked like lollipops. But I guess he just has lollipops. Just, after he kills some people, he likes to suck on one. I don't know.
Hey, it worked for Kojak. Why not?
There you go. If only he'd killed someone in this and been like, "Who loves you, baby?"
Is it just me, or does this elite squad seem like they're on vacation through most of the this rescue operation? Like, they're visiting an art gallery, and he's going to check out some prostitutes, which are thwarted by a army of midgets.
I'm so sorry, I forgot to mention that army. Yes. Kicks him right in the balls.
Yeah, and the thing is, the Museum of Asian Culture scene, quote-unquote fight, it's not even a fight, is one of the silliest things in any of the movies we've watched.
It may be one of the silliest things in film history.
I can't quite figure out the point of it. I think the whole point of it was just to see Sho Kosugi get punched in the nuts by a little person, like twice, while his American counterpart laughs at him and shakes his head from the side, which happens a few times in this movie. But because the whole thing was over in like 15 seconds. So it was literally just to have four little people run up and punch him in the balls, and then he like shakes them around and throws them, and then it's over.
Also, it seems like Kosugi is doing most of the work of this elite squad. The other two are there because they're attractive.
Yeah.
And, I mean, they're like models who don't do much.
In fact,
and then they
send in Kosugi.
In fact, on that note, there's the flashback sequence to when... So basically, I took it as like Kosugi's kind of a failed ninja. He didn't cut the snuff back in the day. Because there's that scene with the ninja master who's like, this isn't working out for you. You must find a different path. And it immediately cuts to the two of them, the pretty Americans, lounging by the pool. And Kosugi is cutting watermelons. And he brings them a tray of watermelon. And the way it read, it's not the way it is, but the way it read was his new path is to go be a servant for these beautiful American people and cut their watermelons for them. And I was like, oh my god, this is like amazing late stage capitalism. Like even ninjas have to like cut watermelon for the 1% as like their new job because they couldn't make it as ninjas.
Jesus.
Also, the Arab guy that they really want to get out of prison,
Raji.
everything about him is kind of amazing, especially the helicopter scene. Where he catches the bullet with his mouth
at point blank range,
and Kosugi's like, "Wow!"
It's all pretty mind boggling. This movie it kind of reaches Neil Breen, Tommy Wiseau sort of territory in a way. Mm-hmm. It's like that level of what the fuck bad movie. But it is so incredibly bad that it's kind of fucking amazing.
I feel like it knew what it was doing at the same time. That's why I said I feel like there is a level of spoof to it.
Yeah.
It's almost
There's
like
more,
a proto.
Yeah, more
it's not
awareness than with Breen and Tommy Wiseau, for sure.
Almost like a Team America World Police thing going on there, with like they're kind of making fun of these elite terror, squads, and I think that's why it looks like they're on vacation, and everything that happens, they always cut back to one or the two of them just chuckling and shaking their head. Oh, that's crazy, Kosugi.
It definitely is. It is pretty self-aware, I think, and it's really just having a fun time. In every scene, they just kind of go for it. Especially the villains. The villains are the most colorful, amazing aspect to this film.
Yeah, the actor playing Albie, Blackie Dammit, who I looked up and is actually oddly Anthony Kiedis' father.
What?
He was.
What?
Yeah. If you look at him again and think of Anthony Kiedis' face, you're like,
I see the resemblance now. Wow, that's wild.
Yeah, he was like a performance artist and character actor back in the day, and I read an interview with him about this movie, and he was like, yeah, they were basically like, I did the audition and they loved it, and they were like, oh, do whatever you want. He was like, so the costumes were all his. He went around to like the punk scene and got like Nazi paraphernalia, because back in the day it was edgy to have stuff like that. And he just decided to go full Dr. Strangelove on it. And the terrible accent, he was like, I'm going to go completely over the top in absolutely everything I do, including how enamored he was of Raji.
I love that.
Because, yeah, he's clearly in love with him, like, beyond appreciation. He's obviously horny for him, like, throughout the movie. He's even talking about, like, rear entry and the backsides of the mountain like, as he's hugging Raji. Like, they make no mystery of it.
Also, I love Honey Hump.
Yes.
Who's like the leader of the Fem Squad part of it. It's like she was her own like gang leader who joined with this other gang, and she still leads her own sort of posse within it. But her speech she gives, where she's like, "Do you understand, pighead?" And that was amazing. That was fantastic. Basically, every little moment with Honey Hump was very special, I thought.
Yeah, it was. She's phenomenal. All the bad guys were so great, even the little guys.
Yeah, wonderfully over the top. They were all people I started looking up what else they had done. There were all those kind of performances. I want to see more of this person and see if they brought this level of insanity to every project.
I love the drug scene where, like, I guess they're paying all these henchmen in like cocaine or...
Oh, yeah. Yes.
I don't know. All of that was amazing. There was a really pervy guy, too. The pervy white henchman with the headband. Like, what is the deal with that guy? He's in a lot of the scenes, too. Like, they really kind of singled him out, and they'll put him, like, front and center. But he's always, like, licking his lips and, like...
Yeah.
I don't know. There's something very unnerving about him throughout this whole movie. Also, the scene with the cigarette and
the lighter and
he can't light it.
Yeah,
that's amazing. That's just fantastic.
Apparently that's the scene that Blackie Dammit auditioned for the movie with. And
really?
Freaked out on the producer's desk and like flipped stuff over and was just like went completely apeshit, and he ended up getting the role from auditioning at that scene.
Amazing.
That's
amazing.
Excellent.
Yeah, I mean I love how they take him out too, which is the death by polo game. They have this whole like showdown, and at their compound in the mountain and stuff. And then there's just this added thing at the end. Like, they're all, like, having lunch with the hostages they freed. Oh, here comes the bad guys. They, like, show up at the house, and they're like, we were on to you the whole time. And then somehow it ends with him in a wheelchair being chased by Kosugi and then getting run over by a polo match.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
It's amazing. It is. It's fucking amazing.
And I was so confused at the end of that scene, too, because I was like, wait, how did they get out of the cave? How did they didn't actually show them being rescued. They just showed them the hostages going, I think we're going to be okay. And then it just cuts to them at the house having lunch. It was so weird. Such an odd transition.
Guess they explain it away because, like, their boss calls Jennifer Barnes and is like, hey, thanks for putting that together. And it's like, wait, what? This, like, it was part of the plan all along to have this fancy dinner with polo horses at the end. And I guess trampling him with polo horses was all part of the plan.
An actual
part of the scheme.
Yeah, what? That was the plan all along? But yeah, that seemed to be what they were insinuating. Oh, gosh, speaking of Jennifer Barnes, the scene with the sticky gun.
Yeah, what?
What the hell is that? She's like shooting like goo. I can't move. And just like what am I watching? Like it's just
so many. The more I think about it, the more weird shit I keep thinking about. Like the Ronkin's phone, which is actually a tennis ball that's opened up.
A flip open tennis ball.
And that's because that actor is actually a famous tennis player, apparently.
Really?
Yeah, VJ.
Shit, really?
Amatraj. I'm sure mangling it. I'm terrible with all names, but VJ or Vijay. Yeah, he's a tennis player apparently.
Oh wow!
And there's that scene with Sho in his office, and he's like playing a tennis racket like it's a guitar.
Yeah,
like tennis imagery all throughout that office.
Oh my god!
I feel like there had to be these people who were just like around, and they just went,
"Yeah,
do you want to be in this? We can write a role for you. Come on."
Yeah, I mean they're on this like island paradise. I mean I know this because of all the long helicopter shots around it. Like I said, they're on vacation. This elite squad. Truly, if like there's one film that comes out of this episode that I would recommend everybody run out and see as fast as they can, it's this one. Because this is the one that surprised me. I remember seeing this back in the day when I was a kid, but I didn't appreciate this as much when I was a kid. When I was a kid, I watched this, I was actually a little annoyed that Sho Kosugi was in this thing. Because I was just like, where's the ninja action? Because I was used to Revenge of the Ninja and stuff like that. I wanted a full-on ninja movie, and I got this bizarro, campy, cult comedy. But now, it's like the best thing ever.
Speaking of the very small amount of ninja action, what about that inexplicable cave ninjas at the end? It's like,
thank you.
Who are they? Where did they come from? Why is there a cave full of ninjas?
They had to have Sho Kosugi fight ninjas, even though they had the flashback. I guess they had to tie that little like narrative string up. I don't know why they didn't tie up anything else in this film, but for some reason they had to tie that up in the final battle. He had to fight these ninjas. Yeah, I don't know. It made no sense, and I still don't understand it. I don't know. What was the reason behind that? I was confused watching that scene.
None.
It just
they
sort
just
of started
show
to
up.
happen.
It just happens. They just show up and he kicks their asses, and then he blows the guy's face off with Raji's face off with a flash grenade. That's literally all. It's just like bam, bam, bam. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah, what was up with the grenades in this film, too? They all spark.
Yeah.
I wonder if that was like a budget thing.
No, I think it's a budget thing. And also, that brings up... Man, the stunts and the pyrotechnics in this movie, because this movie seems so DIY and it was shot in the Philippines, it looked like they looked terribly unsafe and like things could go mortally wrong at any moment, which makes the movie all the more fun. Because that poor actor who played Raji, that thing sparks in his mouth, and like he's got sparks coming out. That's on his head. I was like, God, is that guy okay? Like, who knows?
Yeah.
Even that helicopter fight, I'm like, oh my God, is someone going to accidentally like get the top of their head lopped off? Holy shit!
Yeah, that looked like Kosugi was actually hanging off a helicopter. That was not like a stunt double either. That was
like 30 feet in the air. I was like,
yeah,
jeez,
like damn. It's like Tom Cruise is watching. He's like, all right, I'm going to go for it if this guy.
Oh my God. Oh, well, we didn't talk about the opening credit sequence, which is the second of the 007 style credit sequences, and the far more crazy one, too.
Yeah, except it's got like aerobic dancers in the corner of the screen the whole time while Kosugi's doing his thing. Similar to Pray for Death, strangely. There's like sort of like a similar DNA between the two, but this one's just more bug nuts than that one. So.
Bug nuts. I've never heard that term. I like that.
9 Deaths is that. I think that's the way to describe this movie.
This is totally bug nuts.
It's totally bug nuts.
I thought I couldn't like the opening credits of any of these movies more than Pray for Death until I watched 9 Deaths of the Ninja. Because the spandex clads, like 80s mullet girls, that right to the mullets to the...
Yeah, Amy walked by and she's like, oh, of course they have mullets, because it's the 80s.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right down to Sho Kosugi's, again, it's getting off on body hair again, but his ample, luscious armpit hair. There's a shot that really focuses on it. It's like in close-up while the girls are all dancing. And I'm like, that's so... Living in the Marvel age, we don't see that anymore. And it's like, this shit's like 4 inches long. And I'm like, all right, yeah, let's see some armpit hair. And, this is like the only movie where Sho is like topless a lot. He's like not in most of the movies. He's like fully ninja'd out, or just street clothes in most movies.
And also dubbed.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which we haven't even touched on. Why is he dubbed in this film?
He doesn't need to be. He speaks fine English.
Yeah.
He was already, he's the big star of the film, too, and they dubbed him. It's kind of crazy to me.
I wonder if it was one of those, either they thought he wasn't funny enough, because it is one of the only roles where they were like, he's kind of the main guy, but he's also sort of comedic. But I wonder if maybe they were also just, we don't want to pay for his fee to do any ADR work, so let's just bring in someone else who will do it for less. I could totally see that happening.
Very possible.
Maybe. Yeah. I don't know. I think they just didn't. I don't know. Yeah, I think you might be right maybe on the comic timing front or something, but yeah,
that could be it,
maybe that wasn't the intention originally, and in post they just decided to dub the whole thing, but I'm not really sure.
That could be it, because I was going to say, the villains are all so funny and so over the top, but then our 3 heroes are trying to do comedy, but none of them are very good at comedy, but it actually makes it funnier in its own way.
Yes. It makes it all the more hilarious. But I was glad to see Kane Kosugi back again, doing his nunchuck thing, burning butts, as you said, Waylon.
Yeah.
He was not in Ninja 3. I think, is that the only film we discussed this month that he was not in? I believe.
Yeah,
so.
and it's a lesser film for it, I would say.
Yes.
Kane's awesome. And I like that he went on and had his own martial arts career independent of his dad later. Which is super cool.
He still acts in movies.
That's fucking awesome.
Yeah, he's still an action star today. Still working a lot.
Does he choreograph?
I believe so. He still acts. He's still in front of the camera. I think he's also behind the camera. Cool. But yeah, he's Kane's doing all right. Sho she showed back up in a film called Ninja Assassin that came out, I don't know, maybe about 10 years ago at this point. He played the villain in that. But that was like a return after a long hiatus. So I think they just sort of brought him out of retirement to play the bad guy in that. But yeah, Sho Kosugi's career is really this period between Enter the Ninja, 9 Deaths is kind of towards the end of it. He also did a film with Jean-Claude Van Damme called Black Eagle, and he did a couple others and stuff. But then I think when Jean-Claude showed up and kind of made kickboxing kind of all the rage with Bloodsport and Lionheart and all that, Kosugi kind of became, he kind of got sidelined a bit by that. So yeah. He didn't do much. He didn't do much beyond probably 95 or so until Ninja Assassin. What other thoughts about 9 Deaths of the Ninja, or have we covered all the insanity that this film has to offer?
I don't know that that's possible, but I
No.
think we have...
No.
Not.
Must be seen to be believed.
It's just such a fun, bizarre, oddball ninja comedy that I don't hear enough people talking about. I hear a lot of people talk about Ninja 3 all the time, but I think this is completely deserving of as much attention as that film.
I'd say if not even more. Like I didn't think Ninja 3 again was half as nuts as it sounded when I watched it. I went, okay. But yeah, this movie it's a whole different thing. I'm actually really sad I didn't get to see this when I was younger and doing, movie nights with my friends and stuff. We would have loved this thing.
I agree. I think Ninja 3 gets that moniker just mostly because of the supernatural stuff in it. But 9 Deaths is way crazier and way more original than anything going on in Ninja 3.
Yeah, no, it's a bit unsung, and it deserves to be a cult film on the same level as Ninja 3 has kind of reached that status. But not to take anything away from Ninja 3, it's also completely
Ninja 3 is super fun.
Mad. It's a crazy what the fuck film, but this is as well. And Waylon, who knows? Probably Ninja 3 was hyped to you, and you probably had a level of expectation about it where you had none for 9 Deaths. So
that is true.
Maybe that's part of it as well. So believe me, when I saw it when I was a kid, Ninja 3 was like, what in the actual hell am I watching? It was something. If you would like to check out 9 Deaths of the Ninja, which I highly encourage you to seek this film out, you can stream it for free on Plex. Outside of that, if you're wanting a physical copy of this, that'll be a little more challenging. It's only been released on Blu-ray in Germany, so you'll have to get an import of the film. All right. Well, did either of you all have a favorite film from this month?
Ooh. That's a tough call. I'm going to go with the 9 Deaths for sure. And then second, actually, I'm going to go with Pray for Death, because Pray for Death, I had a nice emotional reaction to it. So I've got it's my Gemini nature. I'm going to take the two extremes, the serious, grounded film and the completely batshit insane film as my two favorites.
Nice. What about you, Gray?
I would say on pure ninja movie level, I'd have to say Revenge of the Ninja was probably my favorite, because it had great ninja action, good plot, and some of the craziness to it as well. But then my absolute favorite was 9 Deaths of the Ninja, just because of it's almost not even a ninja movie. That's why I had to make the caveat of pure ninja movies.
I think for me, 9 Deaths was the biggest surprise. Revenge is the one that's like, it's kind of like The Black Hole, like it's a seminal movie for me. It was this really important movie to my childhood. It's the one I watched the most when I was a kid. So there is that sort of nostalgic factor. But I'm actually going to say Ninja 3 is actually, I think, my favorite. Nice. Ninja 3, I love how ridiculous it is. I love Lucinda Dickey in it. I just love everything about that movie. It's so ridiculous.
Lucinda Dickey is really good, and seems like she would have... do you know anything about her? The reason
besides
she's wearing...
Breakin' and this, and...
Yeah, it was Breakin' that she had gotten cast in. That's why she's wearing that horrible wig at the end of Ninja 3. She had already been cast in Breakin' and had cut her hair short.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Breakin' had become this massive smash hit, and she started getting offered roles, and she was offered roles in King Solomon's Mines. While she was sort of negotiating that, she says Ninja 3 came out, and like all the studios she was negotiating with saw that movie, and everything went completely quiet. And like she says basically her entire career ended. She doesn't have any beef about it. She was like, I still like doing it, and it put me on a different career now. I'm happily married, I have kids, I do different things, but...
And such is like the hell of filmmaking, because it's so horrible for everyone. Oh, I don't want to say it's all horrible, but if you're a director, you have a certain responsibility to try to make a good film because other people's careers might depend on it.
Oh,
no pressure or anything, including your own. It's like you and a bunch of folks.
You're only as good as your last film. as they say, which is kind of sad in the case of Lucinda Dickey, because I believe she did Ninja 3 before she did Breakin'. It's
Absolutely.
just that Breakin'
It just came out after.
first.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know Menachem, the breakdance trend, he was determined to beat a movie called Beat Street to the theaters, and they fast-tracked that film like nobody's business. So they shot it in like a month, and then they had it out of post in like a month and a half or 2 months or something like that. And
Jesus,
got it in the theater, and they beat Beat Street, and because they did, it actually worked for them. It became a huge phenomenon. It was the first like breakdance, like kind of urban, like sort of style movie of its kind. So even though Beat Street's a more serious, like kind of drama about breakdancing, and Breakin's it's very canon. But yeah, it was a huge hit. I remember that phenomenon. I remember having a huge crush on Lucinda Dickey because of Breakin' and stuff.
I loved the breakdancing movies, and I will admit something very embarrassing.
cool.
It is the whitest, most suburban thing to admit. I took breakdancing lessons when I was a kid.
You're a product of your time, Gray. That you are, yeah.
I know, and I'm like...
I had a breakdance video all of Napoleon Dynamite, so, my dad had one in the store, so I used to take it home and try to practice the moves and stuff.
You don't take lessons, you learn it on the street on a piece of cardboard. That's how...
Right.
Yeah, my parents paid for lessons.
Wow.
Bless
could
them.
you do the worm, or, what all could you do?
I could do the worm and, the pop and lock stuff and the robot and all that, but I could never do the fancy stuff like twirling on your head and all that.
Yeah.
Can you still do the worm?
God, I don't know. I would be terrified to try.
Honey, call the doctor! I'm trying to do the worm!
Just picturing playing some old school hip hop and Gray and just can't help himself. It's like the boogie takes over.
Now it's pop and lock and lock. When is this arm going to pop back into place?
Yep.
That's what it is now.
We'll experiment with this, Lynn. If we're all together at some time, I'll put on the roof is on fire or something and just see what happens.
All right, other question for our films. What was your favorite ninja showdown?
Ninja 3, actually.
Ninja 3? All right.
Oh, yeah, the supernatural element. Plus, I like this, the random cutaways to Lucinda Dickey and her cop boyfriend just watching, even though they could totally have helped at some point.
Well, she did help at one point. She does help. She
helps, and then she goes back.
Sword.
And then poor Sho, he's like trying to climb up the mountain, and they're just standing there like, I wonder if you'll make it.
I'm surprised she didn't wave goodbye. I would have been out of there in that little Carmagia. So
yeah.
What about you, Gray?
I'm gonna have to do a two-parter again. My favorite ninja showdown is definitely Revenge of the Ninja. That long-form battle at the end. But I'm gonna also say Pray for Death, because it's not technically a ninja showdown. It's a ninja on gangster showdown. But it's so good. That whole ending scene is just... That whole section is so phenomenal.
I'm the same as you. I'm kind of torn between those two. Definitely Revenge of the Ninja. I just think how elaborate it is. It also is two ninjas versus one another, so you really do get the full breadth of ninja versus ninja. But yeah, it's hard to deny how good that final battle is in Pray for Death, and how formidable Limehouse is against Kosugi's ninja in that. And how freaking brutal and violent it is.
He comes at him with
fantastic. It's fantastic.
The chainsaw scene in particular.
Yeah, chainsaw versus ninja sword. I mean, that's fucking awesome. That's so awesome. So yeah, I don't know. Actually, now that I'm talking about it, I think I'm gonna go with Pray for Death. I think that's my favorite. So, so good, so good. All right, excellent. Well, that was a lot of fun. I'm glad I got to introduce you both to the ninja films of my childhood. So these movies meant a lot to me. Well, thank you to everyone who tuned in. A big shout out to Bo Hitt, who recorded our music as well as helps master all of our episodes. Thanks for making us sound so good, Bo. Next month, we will be diving in to the unsung superheroes from the 1980s. We will discuss Swamp Thing from 1982, The Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai Across the Eighth Dimension from 1984, Howard the Duck from 1986, and last but not least, Sam Raimi's Darkman from 1990. All right.
So excited.
I'm super stoked about discussing these.
Yeah, I can't wait.
Yeah, so digging into superhero films, which were not nearly as popular as they are now. So they were not always kings of the box office. So some of these are indeed lesser known, and some of them are a little more well known. Some of them were actually comic book adaptations, and some of them were comic book characters created for the screen. But yeah, we're gonna kind of dive in and give kind of a whole history of comic book adaptations and superhero films in the 80s. So please tune in next month, and thank you to everyone who tuned in this month. Please don't forget to subscribe to us wherever you're streaming your podcast. Also, if you have time, please rate us as well. That also helps us get found by the algorithm. Until next time, be kind as we rewind.